everyone, welcome to the Cubs Weekly podcast presented by Wintrust, proud legacy partner of the Chicago Cubs and exclusive home of Cubs checking. Open online today at wintrust.com/CubsWeekly. I'm Andy Martinez, joined here by Tony Andracki. We've got a special podcast today. We've got former Cub World Series champion Miguel Montero stopped by with Tony Andracki at CubsCon for an interview. Tony, it was great to catch up with him and reminisce about his times 2015, 2016, being around the team. What were some of your biggest takeaways chatting up with him?
Yeah, it was great, and Miggy's always just an awesome guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed my time covering him when he was here in 15, 16, and he talked just a little bit about like what he's been up to since baseball ended. He talked about his perspective getting traded here and what that was like for him, what he knew about the Cubs leading up to it. But yeah, he's obviously the central figure in Cubs history, right? As like a guy who Ben Zobrist got the game-winning hit in 16, but like he got the hit right after that ultimately ended up being the deciding run to drive that in. And he was the guy that coined the "We Are Good" hashtag in 2015, and it was something that Jed Hoyer even just recently referenced in regards to even the 2023 team and how that phrase just holds up over time. And it was something that Miguel Montero talked about in this podcast, in this interview that we had. So, I know Cubs Convention was a little bit ago, but it was something that we definitely wanted while we were there, was to reminisce on some of these times with Miggy, to hear about how We Are Good originated, to hear about some of these like great moments that all these Cubs fans nowadays will think back on fondly. And as they do, I mean, Montero is a central part of that. Like we said, he had big moments. He was a big part of the team. And before, in 2015, Wilson Contreras wasn't even up yet. So it was Ross and Miggy were the two catchers, basically. So, he was just a big part of the greatest time in Cubs history, I'd say.
You mentioned big moments. NLCS, probably no bigger moment than that in terms of his career. He talked about that. What was it like reminiscing on that and going through, reliving that a little bit?
Yeah, I was really excited to ask him about that Grand Slam. I think it was Joe Blanton, right, that he hit it off of. But that was, covering that game, that was like the loudest I had ever heard Wrigley Field. I literally thought that like the upper deck was going to come down. I happened to be like down the left field line, pretty much by the foul pole, because that's where the auxiliary press box was. So but that was so loud. It was absolutely insane how loud Wrigley was at the time. And I think Fowler right after hit a home run too and followed it up. But Montero, that was the big blow that ultimately was a huge part of the Cubs even getting to the World Series that year. Obviously the big hit that he got in Game 7 in extra innings. But he also talked about his perspective of the rain delay speech, of what Jason Hayward said, of what he thought, his perspective of the final out as he was catching and he saw Chris Bryant's foot slip and he said he was petrified, which was kind of a funny word for him to use anyways. But it was just cool to hear that from a guy that was here. And we've gotten to chat to, Darwin Barney and Ted Lilly and some of these other guys that were huge parts of Cubs history. But Miggy was the only one we got from the Cubs convention that was there in 2016, and the greatest moment in franchise history, but some of these big moments before. It was awesome to hear from him, and as always, he's just a super entertaining guy, a great guy to talk to.
Yeah, it's great to relive it. Like you mentioned, Darwin Barney, Ted Lilly, all these guys were great to reminisce and catch up on their time as a Chicago Cub. But it's totally different when you talk with Miguel Montero, who was part of the team that broke the curse, who won a World Series title. There's nothing quite like it. So let's not give away too much more.
Yeah.
Let's get into the interview. Let's check it out. Tony with Miguel Montero at CubsCon earlier this year.
All right, we're here with Miguel Montero, and Miguel, I haven't seen you since you were throwing batting practice at Wrigley Field. It was almost a year ago. It was right before opening day in 2022 season. I know Cole Wright mentioned it before opening ceremonies here, but can you tell us just a little bit about how that came about for you and what that was like for you to throw batting practice on Wrigley Field?
It was cold though.
Yeah,
so
it was very cold.
I think it was easier for me to move and do something to stay warm. So, might as well just throw batting practice. It's a baseball guy. I can't stay still. I got to do something.
How'd you end up even there that day, as kind of one of the faces and one of the personalities there?
They invited me over, and I was available, and why not? Being with the Cubs was a great organization that they did a lot of great things for us, for my family. So, it's a way to kind of stay connected to baseball and connected to the organization, and for me, it's an honor. Everything that the Cubs do and be part of it, it's an honor, and I'd be more than happy to be there, though.
So I took part in this. Some media members were allowed to take batting practice at Wrigley Field. So I hit first, and there were kids throwing before you, and they were struggling to get the ball over the zone a bit, which is not an excuse, by the way, because I went up there feeling all confident, played baseball my whole life. I was nervous, man. When I stepped in, I was like, I'll probably hit a line to the outfield. I struggled to get out of the infield. Like, I was surprised by the nerves there.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, it's hard, though. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand, because for me, playing, I've been to a couple of pro-ams, golf pro-ams, and teeing it up. I mean, I've been playing in front of big crowds, especially winning the World Series, and come up to hit and never feel nervous. And then going to tee it up a golf ball, I was petrified. I mean, I couldn't even put the ball in the tee because it was so shaky. I'm like, oh my God. So I feel you. I know how you felt. But, in the end of the day, you had a good time, right? And that's what it's all about, though.
So how were you never nervous during your playing career? And how did you deal with those, I guss?
I mean, of course you're nervous, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, nervous is something good, when you because you want to do good. But, how do you calm your nerves? How do you control it? And so in the end of the day, it's a game of failure, though. So why you be afraid to fail? So for me, it was easy. It's like, I would say nervous. I'd probably call a little bit more excitement. You're excited about the situation that you are on it right now, and how do you handle it? It's just like, it's not about the results. Yeah, of course we're going to have good results. But if you put pressure on getting good results, probably more likely than you won't. So you just want to get there and do your best, and whatever happened. It's like I say, it's a game of failures.
So what else have you been up to since you retired? You said playing Pro-Am, obviously throwing BP at Wrigley occasionally. Like, how do you spend your time a lot right now?
After that, I kind of started doing a little bit of agent side business. And as of right now, I stopped doing the agent, and I got hired by the Diamondbacks. So I'm working with the Diamondbacks as a special assistant and player development. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the new chapter in my career. It's a really good gig. I don't know much about it because I just got the job about a month ago, so I'm kind of started get the feel for it. So hopefully now that on Monday the instructional starts, so kind of go out there and see how things are going. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the new role. I mean, we're baseball players. That's all we know how to do. So,
what's it going to be like for you to be on the other side of it then? Not as a player, but as a part of the front office. Is it going to be very different for you?
Well, I don't know. I'm not looking that far ahead, though.
Okay.
For me, it's like a part on the front office, but I'm part on the field. Like, I want to be on the field, so I'll be working on the field with the guys, with the kids, and I'll be probably just bouncing back whenever they want me to go. And I don't know. I really don't know what the future's hold, but I'm excited, and I'll be more than excited to embrace what it is and see how it goes.
And then, when you first came here, when you were first traded here, what kind of emotions went through your head knowing that you were going to join the Cubs, and how much did you even know about the franchise and everything that they had been through, or the city or the fan base, and then how has it kind of lived up to those expectations or those thoughts?
Well, honestly, when I got traded over here, it was, playing against the Cubs a lot of times. Even in 2007, we went to the playoff against the Cubs. I knew the fan base was phenomenal. I knew everything. The city's great. I just didn't know. The only thing I was a little concerned, I just didn't know how I was going to handle the day games, because it's a lot of day games. But after a week, I loved it. I actually didn't like the night games anymore.
Okay.
So for this organization, I mean, it's a great organization from top to bottom. The Ricketts are phenomenal ownership, and they just do a great job. The families. And to be honest, I spent only like 2.5 years over here, and I feel like most of my career was here.
Did you like the day games just because of it allowed you to see family or go out to dinner, or like almost kind of be a little bit of a normal person, and the history aspect of all the day games at Wrigley too, or what was it?
I think it was just the office job, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So I think it was really easy, because after the game you can join the family, going out for dinner and come back and go to bed at regular time, wake up at regular time. Night games is hard because you get back from to the game, and you still, the adrenaline's still going, and you ended up going to bed at 1:30 because, and then, it kind of, everything just gets a little bit out of whack, but and I love the day games. especially early in the year when it's so cold. At least you get a little bit of sun, though.
Yeah, that's absolutely true in March and April. So when you were here in 2015, we know the catchphrase "We are good." You helped start that. I believe it started like during a rain delay in Cincinnati or something. You tweeted something. Was it, or like, how did it originate?
No, actually, it was. I think we had like 4 or 5 games losing streak, and I was at the hotel, and we get all these tweets, and I remember just putting like, hey, this is really a really good group of guys, and I just put the hashtag "We are good" because I really believed it, though. I mean, it wasn't just not making it up, but I really believed that we were really good, though. And sure enough, I mean, like, we start getting hot, we start winning games, and after every tweet, like, you want to stay positive, we are good, and it got really sticky out there,
What's it like from a player to like have something like Twitter, to be able to interact with fans and stuff immediately like that, or to start a catchphrase like that? But then, some of the earlier in your career that wasn't necessarily a thing, and some of the older players didn't have that. But what is it to be able to connect with with fans immediately as a player?
Yeah, I mean, it could be dangerous both ways.
It could be, yeah.
It could be dangerous because, when you start reading a lot of comments, you're not liking it, and you don't want to tweet anything bad. So, I mean, it's just like it's kind of goes both ways. It can help you, and when you look at it in a positive way, and it can help you in a negative way. So, I'm not really a big social media guy. I was with Twitter that time because like the fans would start interacting, and everything was very positive, and why not? So it was actually excited to get on Twitter and start tweeting a little bit, and obviously, like, I wasn't I wasn't a social media, still not.
Yeah.
So I just not big deal for me anymore.
So with that 2015 team, preseason projections were 82 wins for you guys. I know you guys throw those out the window a lot. They don't necessarily mean anything, but to go on and win 97 games, and like you said, you guys knew internally that you were good. Did you guys think that you could be that good? And how did that confidence develop throughout the season to know, like, hey, we are a playoff team and we can compete with the top 2 teams in the division and go to the postseason and make some noise?
I mean, honestly, like, everything goes to such a good group. It was such a good group. The chemistry in the clubhouse was phenomenal. We had a really good group of guys and talented guys. And it was a really good combination of young guys, older guys, and the middle guys. It was a really good combination of everything. And I think that's half of the battle, when you have a good chemistry going on, and everything gets better when you win. And then you start winning, and everything starts getting even better. Better chemistry, better everything, and I feel like we support each other so well that we were invincibles pretty much. So.
And then catching Jake Arrieta, you were in some ways like his personal catcher that year. You caught him more than anybody else by a wide margin. What was it like being behind the plate for that just phenomenal run that he was on? I mean, it was really the best pitching that any of us have probably ever seen, like live and in person, or just in our lifetime, with how amazing he was.
It was easy, though. For him, was no scouting report needed. It was literally like you didn't need anything. Like every time he took the mound, I in my mind, it was like no hitter alert. He was that nasty, though. It was a guy that I didn't want to face him. So, I mean, that guy was just, it was no fair, though. Like, even the other hitters would say it. I mean, I don't say it was me or the other way. Like, anyone who catches it,
You're just throwing down signals.
Yeah, he didn't need any. It wasn't about the catch. It was about him. He was just solid.
How did that confidence and kind of bravado factor into the rest of you guys? Because speaking of Twitter, I remember his tweet before the wildcard game, and it was like, just know, like, it doesn't matter and all that kind of stuff to Pirates fans. But how did that filter into the rest of the team, knowing that you have this alpha that's going to go out and shove, and then he did every time?
I mean, it's hard not to when you have a year like that, though. It's hard not to when you dominate the whole entire 6 months of the year, though. So I mean, we felt good going in with Jake. We felt really good. So we at that point we're feeling confident that we're going to win the game. But then we had another big guy out there, which is Cole, though. So it was Cole wasn't. He was nasty, but it's still probably a little bit immature at the time. He was still pretty young, so we like our chances. And the best thing is that we lead off the game with a homer by Schwarber, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
It was 1-0 right away, like in the first inning or something like that. So it kind of gives us a little breather to give us a little room. So you feel a little better when you 1-0 and you got Jake Arrieta on the mound.
And then, obviously 2015 didn't quite end up the way you guys wanted. We all know the next year did. But how did that carry over? And, when Dex comes back in spring training and you guys see him show up in the spring of 2016 and you know that you guys were able to retool a bit, add Jason Hayward and Ben Zobrist and stuff like that, like what kind of confidence did you guys have going into that 2016 season as a clubhouse?
I mean, we were feeling pretty confident, man. We were feeling sexies out there.
Yeah.
So obviously having Dexter is a big piece of the organization, the team, and like I said, they put the right pieces. Theo and Jet did the right thing. They put the right pieces together because then they brought Sobris, which is a great teammate, great leader. They brought J.A., which is a great teammate, great leader, great player. Unfortunately, things didn't really went the way he wanted it to go, but I won't take anything away. I would have signed him again, because he helped the team to stay together, connected. So even with those acquisitions in the offseason, the team was even more connected than the year prior. And knowing how far we got a year prior and having those guys now, the team is so much better. I mean, there's no way we're going to lose this thing.
So you mentioned Jason Hayward, and we obviously just talked to him even recently as he kind of ended his Cubs career. He talked a little bit about that rain delay speech. It's probably the thing he is most famous for as a Cub. What was your perspective during that speech and how Jason's words resonated with you in that moment?
Well, Jason was having a tough year. Overall, he was having a rough year, and I was there. I've been there. The first year of my contract, I was the same thing. We're trying to do too much. People think that as a player, when you sign your deal, you don't care anymore. No, you do care even more because you want to prove to everybody that you deserve that money. And he was carrying it over. He wanted to do more and more. And I remember having that conversation with him before that. I'm like, hey, man, just don't worry about it. Like, I know that you got a lot of pressure, but like that rain delay thing was like, probably was something that he had on his chest for a while. And it was a perfect time to say it, whatever he said. I can't even remember what he said because I was just kind of geared up, ready to go too. So, I came in right after that to the game. So, but yeah, I mean, he just like the whole team was so connected. It was no way we were going to lose.
So your hit in Game 7 or your grand slam in NLCS, which do you get asked about more, or maybe which do Cubs fans
probably
talk to
the
you
homer.
About? The homer? Because that's what I feel like I've heard more about is like fans who talk about remembering that moment. And I remember covering it. I thought Wrigley Field, like the press box was going to like collapse. That was one of the loudest times I'd ever heard Wrigley was that grand slam that you hit against the Dodgers.
Yeah. But what I found the most difficult, people talk about it, the hit and the homer. For me, the most difficult thing was catching.
Yeah. The
bottom of the ninth inning with the game tie. I mean, I haven't caught one inning in the World Series. I really don't have any feel for the other hitters. So for me to come catch, which I know if I make the minimum mistake, we can lose the World Series right there. It was a lot of pressure. I was like, man, I honestly was like, it was the most demanding thing in my career, just those 2 innings of the Game 7 behind the plate. Because, I mean, like I say, I got to catch Chapman where he just give it up, and he comes at top of the order. I'm like, I don't like my hats. And for me to come to catch and losing the game, it was going to be I'd be devastated for the rest of my life if that would have happened.
So you're more proud even of the 2 innings you caught rather than even the hit, that led to the 8th run in Game 7 or even the grand slam?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean,
okay.
The homer you like. I mean, it's something that's going to
Sure.
stick to your life. But, like, as a catcher, that you take so much pride about calling the game and calling good game and carrying it. I feel like those 2 innings were really, really important for the team and for me because, I mean, like I say, I didn't catch 1 inning in the World Series until that point. So it's like...
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
So going back to that homer, in the NLCS, like going up into that spot, did you think that there might be a pitching change on the other side or Joe might make a move and pinch at you or whatever else? Like what was kind of going through your head going up to that moment?
And where?
The NLCS Grand Slam that you hit. Going up to that, like, what was kind of going through your head? Was the situation in your head? Like, how did you deal with that pressure? We were talking earlier about not getting nervous. Like, how did you go through all of that emotion?
Well, I came in to hit, and honestly, like, I just have 2 epidurals in the morning. So at this point, I shouldn't even be there. Shouldn't even be in the roster. So my chances to succeed was really, really like 1% or maybe 0.5%. So I was just like, just try to put the ball in the barrel, just try to make contact and make something happen. But do not strike out. So I was like, excited and, pressure and everything because, at the point I'm 0-2, I don't want to strike out. So that's when I told myself, I'm like, you know what, just put him in play. Whatever happened, just put him in play. And that's what happened, when you didn't try to do too much and just put a good swing on it and the rest will take care of itself.
Can you explain for those of us who have never had a big hit in baseball, in professional baseball at all, what it's like to hit a grand slam in that moment, or like we said, the Game 7 hit, to stand on first base or to round the bases? Can you just even explain what that's like in words, the feelings that go through you in those moments?
You know what? Like, honestly, I couldn't really, I don't know, I couldn't even digest it for like 3 days. I was like, I went to bed that night, and I was like, man, what did just happen?
Yeah.
What did just happen? Like, I'm running the bases. I'm like, oh my God, seriously, like. And especially it was a rough year for me, though, because I was 200. I didn't really had a good year, and then I hitting 200 to not be playing at all, and then come up with a big hit, which maybe I wasn't even supposed to be in the playoff roster, and then I ended up being in the playoff roster. So it was something that I learned there, that you can never give up. You can let off the gas, and it was a tough time, and ended up just like having okay September and carried it over to October. But yeah, I still thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't even like to watch like those clips like the YouTube and all that with the calm down, whatever. And I don't really like to watch that because it gives me goosebumps. It's excited, but at the same time, it's like that's enough.
It's nice just to have the memory versus like reliving.
Yeah, I think my kids probably enjoyed it later.
So you didn't think you would be on the playoff roster in the NLCS or the World Series?
Yeah.
Just good with the 2 catchers with Ross and Wilson.
Yeah.
And stuff
So and then I didn't have a good year though. So, to catching, I didn't have anyone to catch anymore. I was catching Arrieta and Hendricks. So what am I going to do in the roster? So, but ended up being in the roster, and good for them, though.
And obviously, like you said, you were the catcher for the final few outs there. And on that final out, when KB throws it across to the diamond to Rizzo, did you see him slip?
Yeah.
And like, what? Can you just take us through your perspective as catcher for that whole thing?
The good thing was like it happened so fast, so it didn't give me time to like get petrified. So it kind of happened fast. But as soon as I saw his lid, I'm like, oh, like, okay, now it's done. So it was. But yeah, we all got.
Just had that moment
Pause.
where like your breath catches, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, man, it was awesome.
What's your message to Cubs fans, and when you interact with them here like this at the convention, or you see them or they interact with you, like what do you like to share with them or hear from them, or what would you even like to say to like the whole group of fan base after your time?
It took a long time, but we got it done, right? So hopefully it won't take us long again, which I don't think it will, though. I think they got a really good group of guys coming up now. The team this year is going to be pretty competitive, I think. And they've been patient enough, and they've been loyal to the team. And all I have to do is just thank them because for the loyalty and the support and everything that I come to Chicago. I just feel the love, and I really appreciate that just coming into Chicago.
Well, Miggy, thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Get your Wintrust exclusive debit card. Get your Cubs card.
Ooh, I'll take one. How much?
Actually, they pay you $300. You heard right. Get a $300 bonus when you open a Cubs checking account with Wintrust. Enjoy all perks and purchase with pride every time with your Wintrust Cubs debit card.
$300?
What?
I'll take a $300.
$300? Get your exclusive card at wintrust.com/Cubs. Only $100 required to open. No monthly minimum balance and no monthly maintenance fees. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It was great stuff from Miggy Montero. One of the cooler things that I thought was in that interview was his relationship with Jake Arrieta and being there front row seats to arguably one of the most dominant runs by a starting pitcher, the 2015-2016 run that he had, where, I mean, it's no exaggeration to say every time Jake Arrieta went out there, you thought he could potentially have a no-hitter. What was the takeaway for you seeing Miguel Montero having that front row seat and what that was like for him?
Yeah, I just think, like, going back to what I was saying earlier, but it's cool to get the perspective of the guy that caught Arrieta, you know, this, like, Hall of Fame type of run. And he had one of the best second halves ever in baseball history by any starting pitcher, let alone in a Cubs uniform. So to be the catcher behind the plate, to see all of that stuff, to feel that confidence, to know that, especially for that 15 wildcard game in Pittsburgh, Arrieta is, like, tweeting, you know, no, it doesn't matter, all that stuff to Pirates fans, like, it doesn't matter how loud they are. To hear Montero talk about how that gave the rest of the team confidence, you always kind of assumed, but it's nice to, like, get that perspective from a guy who also, again, was catching Arrieta for a lot of those starts. So I just thought that was a really, really cool perspective. And just in general, like, the chat with Miggy is one of the great things about him is he's very, like, honest and forthcoming. So yeah, that was one of my takeaways just overall was I thought this was a very cool, frank conversation with him, not only on his impact, but on some other guys like Arrieta.
Yeah, it was great catching up with Miggy Montero. It was great catching up with Ted Lilly, Darwin Barney, John Lieber, so many guys that we caught up with CubsCon. We hope you enjoyed them. You can go back and check them out anywhere at Cubs Weekly Podcast, wherever you're listening to on Apple or Spotify or YouTube. We have them all. You can go look them up and you'll find them. But that'll do it for this edition of the Cubs Weekly Podcast presented by Wintrust. Don't forget to download and subscribe to the pod on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and check us out in video form on the Marquee Sports Network app and YouTube. For Tony, I'm Andy. Thanks for listening.